If you can identify what it is that you want to have, and if you could achieve the highest and the greatest potential this year coming up in 2024, who would you be? What would you have done? And how would it feel? And then you really need to take that and anchor that into, I want to say, an emotional state that you could identify with. How would that feel or resonate inside your body?
We only have so much focus to give. So if you have 10 things on your list, all of these 10 things you're trying to focus on, moving them forward into something, then you're having to split your focus 10 times versus just being able to use all of your focus towards moving one big boulder up the hill. You will get there. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast,
a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Anniston, and this is Empowered Life.
Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. This is Rudi and Anniston Ricksteins, and we are so grateful to have you here. This episode is recorded right as we are getting ready to close out on what has been an incredible 2023. Last week's episode, we actually spoke about the value and the importance of self-reflection, of how was your year? What did you do? If you could create a shift or an improvement, what would you want to be able to add in so that you can be primed to be able to jump into 2024 and make it the most incredible year yet? Now, we want to talk to you about how can you set yourself up for maximum success in 2024. And we were talking about this before we even hit record, because we don't like the word goals. We don't like you saying, oh, I'm going to come up with a New Year's resolution, because we know 80% of people that write and come up and commit to New Year's resolutions, they don't even achieve them in the first 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah, I think the association with New Year's resolution for most people, if you're honest with yourself, is probably not a good one, unless you're someone who has a really healthy streak of actually achieving those New Year's resolutions that you set for yourself in the very beginning of the year. Then I would say absolutely keep that name. But if you have not had success in the past and you found yourself, maybe you start the year with gusto and you're excited, and then life starts to come in and you start to fall back into old patterns and old ways of thinking and old ways of being. And before you know it, the year is up and you realize, well, I don't even remember what my New Year's resolutions were. So we want to support you and helping you reframe what it is that you are setting up as these goals, if you will, or what you're committing to achieving and experiencing and feeling and being in 2024 by sharing some of our best practices that we share not only with ourselves, but also with friends, family, clients, coaching clients. And this is really, truly powerful, powerful stuff.
Before we jump into the episode, I want to just ground for a moment in the benefit and the value of setting a New Year's resolution or coming up with a goal, or as we like to say, defining who you're going to be this year and what is the way of being that you need to be every day to be able to show up. The difference between setting a New Year's resolution and recreating or redefining a way of being is that one is how you're going to be. The other one is saying, oh, I'm not going to drink for 30 days. And then I'm going to go back to my really bad behavior of drinking every day. And so the one setting you up for failure, because even if you're successful for 20 days or 30 days, you're still going to go back to the old behavior of doing what you were doing. And it's not going to create the profound shift or change in your life. But if you define a new way to show up, a new way of being, it changes everything. It changes how you feel about what you're doing. It changes why you're doing it. It changes your belief in the process. And it also changes and updates your physical state, your chemical state, to be able to match that end result and that end outcome. Why I love the process or the act of, and Anniston and I really bonded our relationship on this principle when we first met. This was one of the things that we really loved to do, was to define what did we want our year to be coming up. And what I love so much about it is if you look at how life plays out, every single day feels like the day before. And unless you create the awareness, you don't get to create the change. But on the 1st of January, we get a gift. And in that gift, we get this whole sense of, oh, you have a whole new year, a whole nother different something can come up. And it kind of forces us to be able to pause and say, what do we want this year to look like, and what do we want this year to feel like?
I believe that so much of what you're wanting, and so you're wanting things you haven't maybe achieved before, you want to feel different ways, you want to make more money, or you want to lose weight, or whatever that is. Really, it all comes down to an identity process. And who you were in 2023 is absolutely who you will continue to be in 2024, unless you start to make some pretty significant changes. So I like to set goals of, what habits do I want to create that are going to support me in shifting into a new up-leveled identity, or shifting this part of my identity. And here's an example for you. Last year, at the end of 2022, I decided that in 2023, I wanted to create the habit of meditation. Now, let me preface. I have meditated for a very long time. I have dabbled in it here and there, and I would make time for it. But number one, it was never consistent. Number two, it was never a want to. It was always, oh, I should meditate. I really should do this. If there was an ever opportunity to skip it, I absolutely would. On weekends, Saturday and Sundays, for some reason or another, didn't seem to qualify as days I needed to meditate because it's the weekend. So I get a break from meditation. And so I recognized that was not a habit I had created. It hadn't become a part of my identity. Whereas Rudi, without fail, would wake up and meditate and sit in silence and come out of silence and feeling great. And he would do it every single day without fail. I did not have that habit. And so I decided, having the habit of meditation was going to support me in becoming someone who meditates, right? Once it becomes a part of your identity and how you perceive yourself, then it stops being a question and just something that you do. And the benefits of meditation for me have supported me in completing my goal of writing a book, because I get a lot of ideas when I meditate. I come out a lot less stressed. I'm creatively open. It's supported me in reducing stress and making sure that I can manage my energy. It has supported me in so many things and up-leveling in other areas of my life. That one habit. And that was my one major goal. And man, did I stretch that rubber band this past year. And yes, in the very beginning, in those first few months, was it easy? No, but I decided to go full on. We attended a 7-day advanced meditation retreat where we were meditating. I think we meditated 40 hours in those 6 days. It was intense. And then after that, I knew what I was capable of. And that meditation practice has continued.
So if you think about the value of what Anniston is sharing in wanting to stretch past what was her belief of what was possible in meditation, you see a lot of things came up there. One is, oh, I want to meditate. I love the idea of the meditation. I don't believe I'm gaining anything from it, so I'm easy to stop doing it. But also when I do it, I'm only going to do the bare minimum. You see, what she didn't mention was that her meditations at the time were around about 15 minutes at a time. The longest meditation would be 20 minutes and be like, oh man, I did the long one today because it was 5 minutes longer. Now, I'm going to be honest and tell you, I also have been the person that's been doing the 15 to 20 minute, 30-minute meditations, but rarely did I stretch past that time limit because, well, we're busy, or we're lazy, or we don't want to spend or commit the time. And I'm going to come back to because we don't understand the value or the benefit of doing it. When Anniston said, I want to commit to doing it this year, it's because she's always inhaling information. And at one point in time, she touched a book, she did a course, there was a program, there was something that just spoke into the benefit and the value of spending time with yourself, sitting with yourself, getting to know your thoughts, getting to know your feelings, calming your mind, moving your energy so that you can be the most empowered and abundant and joyful and expressive version of you, and then walk out and into your day. And that enticed her. And then she looked and stacked evidence that, well, when other people do this, they get the results. So if it's possible for them, then it has to be possible for me. And then that's when the meditation practice started to shift and change. This morning we came downstairs. I came downstairs. Anniston was already in her office. The doors were closed and she was meditating. Like an hour and a half later, I'm like, what is she doing? Like, she's still in there. It's Saturday, like we have a Saturday morning routine. We wake up, sometimes we go for a walk, and like she's still in the meditation. And then eventually at 7:30, 8:30, I walk in, I'm like, are you done? Like, what's going on? Because I'm already finished my practice and she was just finishing hers. And it's become a way of being that I want to bring back the words that she used. I no longer have to think about what I'm doing. I just get into the doing. And that is what we're talking about in this episode today is who do you want to be? What do you want your year to look like? What do you want your year to feel like? And at the end of 2024, when you self-reflect and you go back and you look at the entire year of what you've had and you're sitting in awe of the brilliance and the magnificence of what has been your life and what you've created and everything you've touched, what did you do? How did you feel? And in that moment, if you could identify an emotional state, what would that state be? I dropped a hint because I used the word awe because it's my favorite. If I'm always in a state of awe, then I've always had amazing things that have come to me. So that's where I want to anchor myself all the time. But if you can identify what it is that you want to have, and if you could achieve the highest and the greatest potential this year coming up in 2024, who would you be? What would you have done? And how would it feel? And then you really need to take that and anchor that into, I want to say, an emotional state that you could identify with. How would that feel or resonate inside your body?
As you're thinking about 2024, I am a big advocate, I know Rudi is too, of less is more, right? I think too often we think, okay, I'm going to make my long, and we used to do this actually when we first got married. I remember the first couple of lists that we made for our New Year's resolutions. I want to say they were like 2 pages each. I mean, it was crazy. And we would make them together. It was part of our tradition. And, you know, we would make all of these lists and I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And it's physically impossible to focus on that many things at one time. And over the years, we started to reduce that list and reduce that list and reduce that list. And I actually believe last year's list for us had like 3 things on it. This year's list, I believe, might just have 1. And because we've realized the power of when we can reduce down the number of things that we're focused on, either achieving or being or a habit or whatever that is, and just go all in on 1 to 2 things, that our rate of actually achieving it, not only do we achieve it faster, but it's so much easier for us to stay focused on it. We don't forget about it, lose, you know, and your focus is your currency, right? We only have so much focus to give. So if you have 10 things on your list, all of these 10 things you're trying to focus on, moving them forward into something, then you're having to split your focus 10 times versus just being able to use all of your focus towards moving one big boulder up the hill. You will get there.
So before we hit record, Anniston and I were chatting about the episode and kind of rough ideating of where we wanted to go. And she asked me, Rudi, what is your year for the word? And I said, you know, I still have time.
Your word for the year.
What did I say?
You said year for the word.
My year for the word?
Yeah.
My word for the year. And you know, we were talking about what is that one word that we're going to use to define how we're going to look at and what is the expectation of what we want to achieve in that year. Now, your word for the year is not the same as your idea or your goal, but it heavily becomes a guiding force. And every year for the last 4 or 5 years, I think it's been 5 years now, we've had a single word. And then that word is what we use to overlay all of what we want to have, be, do, and achieve. You know, 13 years ago, we would write down, oh, we want to go to New York and have a shopping spree. We want to, you know, do this. We want to go and stay here and achieve that and buy this thing. And there were all these monetary, really ridiculous goals that we thought at the time was a way for us to create experience or what we wanted to have and be and do. Now that we're narrowing them down, they're really tied to things that we want to achieve in life as part of what is our mission or part of our purpose or how we want to feel. So they could be like a health related goal or a dollar value. And while we were sitting talking, because I've had 4 words moving around in my head over the last month as I'm thinking about what do I want to create for the year coming ahead. And I just landed on it while we were talking, and I'm going to go ahead and share it with all of you now. Last year, my word was receive, and that was I wanted to receive. I struggled to say, hey, could you help me with something? I'm the first person to say, can I help you? But I'm not good at saying I need help. And so Anniston was the one that challenged me to receive. And so all year long, anytime I wasn't receiving, she'd be like, it is a receiving year. And so that forces you to go back and lean into that way of being. My word for 2024 is impact. I am going to be defined by the word impact. And in every moment, I'm wanting to create the single biggest impact that I can. My goal has been for the last 20 years to leave a room better than I found it. But if I am going to go into 2024 and I'm going to set one defining word, one goal, and that goal is impact, leaving the greatest impact that I can in every single person's life that I come into contact with, now you can see there's going to be 50 goals underneath that one word that I would have to achieve. So now I have to meditate because I need to be prepared to create the impact. I have to work out so that I feel good in my own body. I have to eat right so I have the energy to be able to do it. And so all the things that we would normally want to add onto one of those goal lists already fits underneath what is the end result of what it is I'm wanting to achieve. And so I would challenge you to ask yourself, what are the things that you really want to have? And if you take a loose piece of paper and you just write down, I want to make more money, I want to be healthier, I finally want to get that elusive six pack, and you just keep listing all the things you want to do and what you want to achieve, what is the total of all of that? And if you could you put that into a single word that would then encapsulate or define your year?
I love that word for you, by the way. This is hot off the presses. I did not know you were going to choose that word, but that's such a good word. And I was so proud of him this year because I cannot tell you how many times throughout the year, he would be conversating with me or sharing something and saying, so-and-so asked me, how can I support you? And I said, no, I'm fine. And I'll let you know later. And I was like, Rudi Ricksteins, you said this year was about receiving. So you get to show up in your worth and you get to allow other people to give to you. And it's such a gift. And I think you did that beautifully. It got a lot easier towards the end of the year. I was really proud of you. But for me, my word for this year, and again, I've thought of several different words and I have some, definitely have some strong runners up, but for me, it's magic, because I want to remind myself this year, which is going to be a very heavily focused year on manifestation and creation. I want to remind myself every single day that we live in a really magical universe and that it gets to be easy. It doesn't have to be hard. And that I get to remind myself to ask for assistance and to look for the magic in every situation. So that's my word.
I love that. That too is hot off the press. Look, coming to you first on the Empowered Life podcast. So now what I want you to do is to take what we're talking about, which is just an idea, and then I want you to put that into some form of a practice. And I have brought this into organizations to help align entire teams and or people. I recently did this not even a week ago in New York City for 60 people. And I'm going to say to you the power of doing this exercise, because it's going to again sound really simple, really easy, but if you don't do it, it's absolutely worthless. And that is to say, what is that one theme that you want to have, be, do, or achieve at the end of the year? And you can define that into a single emotion, into a single word, into a single state of being. Now, what I need you to do is write down 3 things that you need to do, or 3 goals that would support you in being able to get there. I gave you mine already. In a moment, we're going to ask Anniston for hers because she's got such a beautiful word, magic. But people are going to say, well, how do you define a goal and assign that to magic? For me to create impact, I already know I need to get 8 hours of sleep. I don't get 8 hours of sleep, I am a miserable person and no one wants to spend time with me. If I don't eat right, I don't feel energetic. If I don't meditate, I am not primed to start my day to create the impact. So there are things that I physically need to do to support me to be able to do the work that I do. And so under impact, I would then list out what are the 3 most important things that I want to do this year. And they can be things I've already achieved that I want to maintain, or they can be new things that I want to elevate into. And those are going to then support being the undercarriage of what is that one defining goal. So you could say health, it could be, better sleeping patterns, or it could be stopping smoking or drinking, or whatever it is that you want to add, that thing that you want to create that shift in. We're going to take this a step further in a moment, but I want to ask Anniston, what are her 3?
The 3 things that will support me and leaning into magic this year, I would argue, similar to Rudi's, that it's my sleep fitness, which we take very seriously in this household, and we track and we look at and we think, how can we make this better? So I would put together my sleep and my movement exercise. So moving my body every single day, this helps reduce stress. When you're stressed, there ain't no magic. There is nothing but just chaos happening all around you. And so that's going to be key in keeping me in a heightened state and a higher vibration energy, so that I'm accessible and I can sense magic all around me. Another thing is meditation. Last year, you know what? I learned the absolute benefits of manifestation. I don't think I'm sorry, of meditation. I've never manifested more than I have last year. And I attribute so much of that to meditation and creating that space every single day to get super quiet, clear, present. And I just started seeing things show up in my life in ways that I've never seen before. And more than that, I have changed. Like the me that was at the very beginning of 2023 has shifted dramatically in how I feel about myself, my levels of confidence, my happiness, my fulfillment, so much of it. And I attribute so much of that to my meditation practice. So that is key. And then the third thing is, this is a year for risks. If I believe in magic, then I've got to start putting myself into situations, taking risks, taking leaps of faith so that I can experience the magic of what happens.
So now that you have your three key defining things that are going to support literally the undercarriage to your defining year, now you've got to take each one of those and write out very specific steps and goals to be able to achieve it. You see, if we have a big goal or a dream and we put it down on paper and we sticker and plaster it all over our home or our office, that's great, but that's not going to do anything if there isn't a physical action that is tied to each and every single one of those things. And so if I talk about just health and well-being, and we've been very vocal about what we do for our health. Our health includes our sleep. Our health includes getting into cold plunges, saunaing, that's working out, that's cardio, as well as a fitness training. Then that also extends to food. And so that would be every single one of those areas or categories. We can even go as far as to the water that we drink and how seriously we take what kind of water we put into our body and the liquids that we consume. And then added to that, even the toothpaste that we use. I mean, I can really get granular on how seriously we take health because the health is all tied to our longevity. And you have to really define what are the steps and the things that you are prepared to do that are going to support you to be able to live the highest and the greatest expression of your life. We want this episode to really be one that kind of pings you a little bit, like in the middle of the center of your soul, and it lights up and says, oh, what if I could have the highest and the greatest potential? What does that even mean? And what does that even sound like? What does that feel like inside your body? We believe you are these powerful, abundant, joyful beings that can truly have, be, and do and achieve absolutely anything. There is a dream or a goal or a desire that is in you. It is your responsibility to live that and to meet that. And we believe that this is an abundant, glorious universe. But you have to believe that it's possible. And then you have to want it. And then you have to do something to be able to get it. And so it's in the believing, it's in the wanting, it's in the doing. Those action steps are all going to lead you closer to being able to live and have that life. I always look back at when we've reflected on a year and then when we've set clear defining goals of who we want to be and what we want the end of the year to look like. I will tell you that many times in 2023, I chickened out on receiving. There were those times, and Anniston called me out beautifully a moment ago, where I was on the phone with somebody who could truly change my business. They're very influential. They're big in my space. And at the end of a phone call, they say to me, oh my God, this was the best phone call I've ever had, man. What can I do for you? And in that moment, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. Because I don't want to be needy. I don't want to ask. And then I'm about to end that call. And then I've got Anniston in the back of my head saying, no. And then I'm like, actually, you know what? There's something I would love to. And I didn't do that a lot, but it's in those times that I did. I just had the most beautiful experiences come from that. And I also recognize I gave people gifts in being able to grow and support me, but it came from first having that awareness and setting the goal.
I think that, again, like I said, our lists and our wants and our goals, if you will, have continued to shift and evolve as we have. And I think it's due to our overall understanding of our manifestation process. Used to be, it would be very, very specific. Like, I'm going to make this much money by this date. I'm going to buy this home, this at this address. I'm going to do this, very, very, very granular and very specific. And sometimes we would achieve them and sometimes we wouldn't. And then as we've grown, we've really started leaning more into creating a state of being, like being what it is that we want. So let me give you an example. For some of you, maybe your word that you're thinking for this year is abundance. Maybe what you really want most and your heart of hearts is, financial security. You want not only that, but you want more than enough so you can go and do all the things that you want to do. So for us, that goal would be, okay, how can I start being abundant? not on how I feel and how I think, because once you are being that, you are a match for it. And every other little thing on that list that has something to do with abundance will take care of itself. In fact, it will probably come in some way that you never expected, and even better than you expected. And that has been our experience. So we have found greater success at this point in the year doing what we're basically prescribing you to do, which is to think about, what do you want your dominant feeling and way of being to be this year? How can you start being that now? And how can you start creating the behaviors that are going to allow you to be that? Because then you will be a match. You will be a magnetic element, drawing in all of those things that you want for this year.
So your homework is to sit by yourself, define what is that one thing that you want to do, that if at the end of the year you achieve your highest and your greatest potential, what would that be? How would it feel? And then I really want you to spend time in the what would that be like stage. Then define what are 3 big themes that would then support that entire year. And then each of those 3, you need to then set what are very clear things that you could do on an everyday basis or an every week basis that would be able to move you forward. People really, they don't pay enough attention to compounded work or compounded interest. And if you just do something small every single day, but you do it with consistency, your life is going to be very different, and you're going to achieve unbelievable things in any area of life. And that's what we're hoping, that we can support you in not only defining what are those small micro things that you can do every day, so you can define how you roll up into the thing that supports the year that you ultimately want to create. You are worth living the highest and the greatest expression. You came here to do something really big. 2024 is an unbelievable year. If we just talk about it astrologically, numerologically, this is going to be a year for the making, but it's the year that you're going to make it. And it starts with you.
We're going to have an episode next up that will be talking about the year to come from an energetic perspective.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Empowered Life podcast. We hope that you have an incredible close to the end of 2023. We love you so very much. Thank you for spending some time with us. We are truly grateful to each and every single listener, to every one of you that have shared these episodes with people around you to help spread our message. From our hearts to yours, we just want to say we couldn't have done any of this without you.